I broke that promise. And for that, I'm very, very sorry.
You know, sometimes news hits and it's actually good. And this is one of those times. So, this is an update and possibly a conclusion to a story that I've been covering for almost a year now. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has announced that he is reversing his decision to give away parts of the Greenbelt, which is protected land in Ontario. He's reversing the decision to give those pieces of land away to his rich developer buddies. And this finally happened after a month and a half of sustained pressure after the initial report came out from the Auditor General and the Integrity Commissioner. And then you had resignations and just on and on and on, dropping poll numbers, which I think is really what led to this. And this was all due to investigative journalists doing incredible work. So I'm going to get to crediting some of that in a bit here, as well as a journalist at the press conference yesterday with Doug Ford and just the amazing questions and the pressure put on him. I'm going to show you what some real journalism looks like because people don't often get to see it. So I'll get there. But first, man, it's impossible to summarize this entire story. But let me try very quickly so you know what went on up to this point. There is a protected piece of land in Ontario called the Greenbelt. Doug Ford initially, when he ran in 2018 in his first run, said he would not develop the Greenbelt. Of course, like everything else, he lied. And not only did he work to develop the Greenbelt, but he also gave parts of it away to people that are connected to him. But it was through people that worked for him that were doing this. So still at this point, there's no, I guess you could argue, direct line, even though there kind of is. But there's no direct, ask of Doug Ford talking to a developer and saying, yes, we're going to give this piece of land to you. It was done through a political staffer for the housing minister who resigned in the wake of the initial report. Then you had the housing minister resign. And now the past 48 hours, you have two more people resigning. So Khalid Rashid, Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery, who gave the Integrity Commissioner incorrect information about a Las Vegas trip with the Greenbelt developer, and Ford's Director of Housing Policy, Jay Truesdale, who also went on the trip. So those two individuals also resigned. A lot of connections here to Ford, but Ford, like the mafia boss he is there's enough of a gap between him and the result here that he has been able to protect his own job, at least for the time being. But this is where we get to his announcement. So leading up to this, weeks and weeks of polling like this, Doug Ford hurt by Greenbelt controversy, poll suggests. That was back at the end of August. Then you have September 8th, two polls suggest Ontario Greenbelt saga eroding Doug Ford's political support. Then you have more polling. This is, I think, maybe what ended up with the decision here. But you have Doug Ford's approval sitting at 28%, and that is tied with the lowest in the country among premiers. So you can see Ford right here, tied with Manitoba, and he's going down while the others are going up. And then here are the sinking numbers as well. So the lowest he has seen, 28%. And then, of course, very soon after, you have this announcement.
I made a promise to you that I wouldn't touch the Greenbelt. I broke that promise. And for that, I'm very, very sorry. I pride myself on keeping our promises. It was a mistake to open the Greenbelt. It was a mistake to establish a process that moved too fast. This process, it left too much room for some people to benefit over others. It caused people to question our motives. As a first step to earn back your trust, I'll be reversing the changes we made and won't make any changes to the Greenbelt in the future.
This should have been the initial announcement after the first report came out. Nothing he said there is new information about people questioning motives, about the information that came out. Nothing new happened except his sinking poll numbers. It is very clear why finally he now decided to do this. It's simply because of his lack of popularity. He saw how terrible he was doing, how unpopular he is. That is the only reason he made this decision. So just be clear about that. Any attempt to give Doug Ford credit here for anything, he's just trying to save his own ass. Now, this goes to a couple of questions. Is this move set in stone? Not yet, but as CBC writes here, Ford may have vowed to return all of the hectares of land back to the protected Greenbelt, but that only becomes official with legislation. The Ontario legislature returns to Queen's Park on Monday. So we will see on Monday if they make this official. I have to assume they will. I don't think you can't really announce this and then not do anything about it. So I assume we will see this. But this is the bigger question I have. When asked if the government will owe those developers any money, Ford said newly appointed Municipal Affairs and Housing Minister Paul Calandra is working through those details, and they'll be made public once confirmed. To me, this screams yes. Because if they weren't going to owe them any money, he would just say, no, we don't. We're not. They don't have the land. They're not owed money, whatever. But it sounds like, no, there's going to be a payoff here. Because, again, of the promises that Doug Ford made. So this is just, and this is a guy who, when he was running, railed against all the wasteful spending. Oh, Ontario, the gravy train, spending all this money. This guy throwing away money because of mistakes that he himself created, because of the corruption that he's been in. Just unbelievable. He's such a corrupt individual that and it's been very clear, not just because of this, it's been very clear for a long time. All his BS about fighting for the workers while, cutting right through workers' rights during his first term, continuing those sorts of policies. This is a man who does not care at all about anybody but himself and his friends. And to be honest, this is not a defense of him here. I'm not even sure if he's aware of how corrupt he is. Because to him, it's just, oh, he's my friend. Of course I'm going to help him out. I'm not even sure if he's really thinking about, it in terms of like him being evil. But that's who the guy is. He pretends to care. He gives his phone number away. Oh, you can call me anytime you want. But when it comes down to actual policy, when it comes to who he's going to fight for, since the beginning, since before he became premier, since before he, was even deeply in politics, if you follow the man's career, it's very clear that he is about himself and his friends. That's it. Now, there's also a lot of credit here to go around, with the Narwhal deserving a ton of credit for their reporting. This is the report that I initially touched on or did a whole video on back in November. So this is why I said I covered this for almost a year. This is the first time there was any even indication about this whole thing going on. So they are the ones, the Narwhal, and I believe with the Toronto Star, as they write here. Toronto Star found that changes would benefit a select group of developers, many of whom had donated large sums to the Progressive Conservatives or hired lobbyists connected to the party. So the Narwhal, the Toronto Star, their investigative journalism here did a fantastic work to begin uncovering this, and that eventually led to a report from the Auditor General looking deeper into it. You also have more journalists here that deserve some credit. So Amar Khan, who's covered this very well as well online, and Colin DeMello. And I don't know Isaac Collin as much, but I guess he's also been involved in this. But Colin DeMello, I gotta show you this clip. There's a couple of clips, actually. So during this press conference, Colin DeMello, again, a reporter, in case it wasn't clear, for Global News, he asked a couple of tough questions here of Doug Ford. And it's so wonderful. I love the interaction here. Check this out.
Hey, good afternoon, Premier Colin DeMello from Global News. I wanted to talk about the stag and doe that you held in your backyard about a year ago. We learned some incredible details today that Tony Miele, the head of the Ontario PC fundraising arm, sold tickets to a developer who purchased those tickets and, attended the stag and doe. Yeah. Where did that money go, Premier? Did it go into your family's bank account?
I love the inflection in the voice. I love the way he asks that question. I love Doug Ford's surprise reaction when he suggests that maybe it went into his own bank account. Just and that's just the beginning. I'm going to show you his response, and I'm going to show you the follow-up question from Colin DeMello as well. Just this is so enjoyable to watch.
Tony's been a friend of the family for many, many years. And, he did it on his own accord. And, but the integrity cleared me 100% today. And it was a stag, not a stag and doe, but here nor there.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification on what kind of a party it was, Premier, but help us understand here. How should Ontarians trust you when you are hosting developers in your backyard? Those developers pay money to have access to you and your backyard, and the money goes to your family. This is developers to the party to your family.
Well,
Is that
I
not
appreciate-
corruption?
Well, first of all, Colin, thank you for that question. I've never taken a penny from absolutely anyone. I've never even expensed a hamburger or a chocolate bar, nothing, ever. I pay out of my own pocket. And as for if people want to talk to me, they can show up to Ford Fest, thousands of people do, but no one can influence me. Simple as that.
All right, bro. Nobody believes you. And just so many great moments there. The beginning when Doug Ford is answering the question. Oh, Tony, he's been a friend of the family for years. Tony's a good guy. Tony, the guy that sold tickets to wealthy developers that just happened to be at your daughter's stag and doe or whatever the hell it was. The other hilarious part is, Doug Ford clarifies what kind of party it was, and Colin DeMello goes, I appreciate the clarification of what kind of party it was, Premier. But let's get back to the substance. So good. So good. I love it. I love it. This is how journalists should be treating people in power. And Doug Ford is very familiar with Colin DeMello. There was another exchange they had a few weeks back now, I think, where Ford got really angry. And it's just, this is what these people like Doug Ford, they are public servants. That's their job. They're supposed to be working in the best interests of the public. It can be a fantastic job if you actually take it seriously and do what you're supposed to be doing, or it can be a terrible job and very pressure-filled if you are working for the interests of others and not the people that elected you. So, Doug Ford wouldn't be facing all these tough questions if he actually worked in the best interests of people. But this is why you have individuals, journalists like Colin DeMello out there, and others. By the way, I should mention, I did mention the names when I brought up the narwhal, but Emma McIntosh, Nora Javid, and Brendan Kennedy are the ones on the initial report from the narwhal that looked into these connections between developers and Doug Ford. So credit to them for helping to launch this entire thing and getting the result that ultimately we needed. Now, what's left here? Oh yeah, so there's still the potential. I covered this a few weeks ago when the news first broke that the RCMP is looking into this whole corruption and whether or not there are going to be any criminal charges laid. So they're still looking into it. We're not sure if giving the Greenbelt back is now going to absolve him. So that's unclear. But I assume at some point we'll get an update on that investigation. And there's also today another cabinet minister resigned. So this is just, of course he's claiming it's not connected, but this guy is apparently resigning to go into, some private industry. I don't even know, but he's the labor minister. Now it's going to work in the private sector because, of course, it's just a lot happening. And because of that, there's now going to be another cabinet shuffle. Doug Ford is flailing. This really shows you how rattled he is. The fact that he reversed this decision after a month and a half of saying, no, we got to keep this, we got to develop this land because we need homes. Even though the initial report exposing the corruption, the initial report even said, no, you do not need this land. There's plenty of land that is not in the Greenbelt that you can develop homes on. And any home developed on Greenbelt land would likely be $1 million homes. So you're not really feeding the actual need that people have for affordable housing. Whatever. It was all blown up because of fantastic investigative journalism, because of sustained pressure, and because of those two things, dropping poll numbers.